Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel General Hospital today. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. It was supposed to be a calm morning in Port Charles, but the tension inside the courthouse was thick enough to choke on. Nina Reeves sat at the plaintiff's table, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her mind raced with guilt and fear, but beneath that, burning, pulsing like a wound that wouldn't heal, was a flicker of vindication. She had convinced herself she was doing the right thing. For justice. For truth. But deep down she knew it was for something else. Revenge. Willow Corinthos sat just a few feet away, unaware that the woman across from her was about to shatter her life again. Michael reached over, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. "Whatever happens today," he whispered, "we'll handle it together." Willow smiled softly, her eyes filled with faith. "I know. I just want to put this behind us." The judge entered and everyone rose. Nina could feel her heart pounding in her ears as the bailiff announced the start of the custody hearing. Sonny Corinthos sat in the back row, his dark eyes watching silently, his jaw tight. He hadn't wanted it to come to this. He thought Nina would back down, that she'd finally learn to stay out of things she didn't understand. But that wasn't Nina's way. The proceedings began smoothly at first, routine questions about visitation, medical stability, family involvement, but as the discussion turned toward Nina's relationship with Willow and the children, her emotions began to twist. Her attorney asked, "Ms. Reeves, can you tell the court why you believe it's in the best interest of the children for you to have regular visitation?" Nina hesitated. She glanced at Willow, who sat upright, calm but guarded. "Because I'm their grandmother," Nina began softly. "And I love them. I want to be part of their lives." The judge nodded. "And what's preventing that now?" Nina's throat tightened. She could have stopped there. She could have left it at love and reconciliation. But the bitterness rose like a tide. "Willow doesn't trust me," she said. "She's kept things from me. From the court even." Willow's eyes widened slightly. "Excuse me," she whispered, turning toward Michael. Michael frowned. "What is she talking about?" Nina looked down at her hands. Her lawyer gave her a warning glance, but she ignored it. "Your Honor," she said, her voice trembling, "I didn't want to do this. I really didn't. But I can't stay silent anymore. The court needs to know the truth." The room shifted. Even Sonny leaned forward, sensing the moment was about to explode. The judge looked at Nina sternly. "Ms. Reeves, if you have information relevant to this hearing, you may present it. But be aware that false testimony will have consequences." Nina nodded, her breath shaky. "It's not false. Willow lied to everyone." Willow's pulse quickened. "What are you talking about, Nina?" Nina's gaze lifted, filled with both pain and fury. "You told the court you're stable, that your recovery is complete. But I have documentation, medical documentation, that says otherwise." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Michael stood immediately. "That's not true. You have no right." "Sit down, Mr. Corinthos," the judge ordered. Nina pulled out a folder, sliding it toward her attorney. Her hands trembled, but she forced herself to continue. "Willow's been hiding her medical complications. She's been downplaying how fragile her health still is. She's been putting herself at risk, and by extension the children. I have the proof right here." Willow's voice cracked. "How did you get that? That's private medical information." Nina's lips quivered. "I didn't mean to invade your privacy. I only found out because of a mutual contact at the hospital. They were worried about you, worried about Wiley and Amelia. I had to protect them." The judge frowned deeply. "You obtained medical records without consent?" Nina's attorney quickly intervened. "Your Honor, my client's intentions were not malicious. She simply wanted what was best for the children." Willow's eyes filled with tears. "How could you do this, Nina? After everything? After I gave you a second chance?" Nina's voice wavered. "Because you keep pushing me out. You keep acting like I'm the enemy, but I'm their grandmother. I deserve to know if you're well enough to take care of them." Michael slammed his hand on the table. "You don't get to decide that." Sonny finally stood from the gallery, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Enough." Everyone turned toward him. His tone was low, but it carried. Nina, what the hell are you doing? Nina looked at him helplessly. You said you wanted honesty, Sonny. That's what I'm doing. No, he said firmly. What you're doing is betrayal. Her lips parted, her heart shattering. Betrayal? After everything she's done to keep me from my grandchildren. This isn't about revenge, Sonny snapped. This is about you crossing every damn line again. The judge called for order, banging the gavel. But the damage was already done. Willow sat frozen, her world spinning. She could barely hear the legal jargon being exchanged, the objections, the questions, because her mind was reeling with humiliation. Later, outside the courtroom, Willow faced Nina in the hallway. Michael tried to hold her back, but she stepped forward, her voice shaking with anger. You had no right to do that. Nina's eyes glistened with tears. I had every right as their grandmother. No, Willow said, her tone cutting. You had every opportunity to be part of their lives, but you keep destroying every bridge I built. You don't know what love means, Nina. You only know how to control. Nina flinched, her lips trembling. That's not true. I've made mistakes, but I've been trying. Trying. Willow's eyes filled with tears. You just told a courtroom I'm unfit to be a mother. How is that trying? Sonny stepped forward, his voice firm but pained. Nina, you need to understand something. What you did today. It's not just going to affect Willow. It's going to affect me too. Nina turned to him, desperate. Sonny, please, you have to see why I did it. He shook his head. I see it clear as day. You wanted to hurt her because she shut you out. That's not love, Nina. That's vengeance. Her breath caught. So that's it? You're just going to take her side. I'm not taking sides, Sonny said quietly. I'm telling you that you crossed a line you can't uncross. Michael led Willow away, his hand around her shoulders. Come on, let's go. As they walked down the hallway, Willow's legs felt weak. She just couldn't stop, she whispered. No matter what I do, she always finds a way to punish me. Michael kissed the top of her head. We'll fight this. Promise. She's not going to win. Back inside, Nina sat on a bench, trembling. Her attorney approached. You realize this could backfire. The judge may rule that you violated privacy laws. You could lose your visitation petition entirely. Nina's voice broke. I didn't want it to go this far. I just wanted to be heard. But even as she said it, she knew she'd gone too far. That night, back at Sonny's penthouse, the silence was unbearable. Nina paced the floor while Sonny poured himself a drink. He didn't look at her. Not once. Finally, she broke the silence. You haven't said a word to me since we left court. What am I supposed to say? He replied, his voice low. You told the judge something that could ruin Willow's life. You betrayed her, and you betrayed me. Nina turned, her voice rising. I was protecting my family. He finally looked at her, eyes filled with disappointment. You keep saying that, but you don't see the difference between protection and destruction. You blew up everything again. Her breath hitched. So what, Sonny? You're done with me. He took a slow sip of his drink before answering. I don't know. But right now I don't even recognize you. Tears streamed down Nina's face. You act like I'm some kind of monster. But I've been pushed and rejected for years. How much am I supposed to take before I fight back? Sonny's tone softened, but his eyes remained cold. There's fighting back and there's crossing a line. You told a judge private medical information that wasn't yours to share. You didn't just fight back, Nina. You burned down every chance you had to make things right. She covered her mouth, sobbing quietly. Meanwhile, at the Corinthos home, Willow sat in the living room with Michael. Her mother, Carly, joined them, having rushed over after hearing what happened. I can't believe she did that, Carly said, pacing angrily. She just can't help herself. Willow shook her head. I wanted to believe she'd changed. That maybe for the kids' sake she'd finally put the past behind us. Carly placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. You were too kind, sweetheart. Nina's not capable of that. Not yet. She's obsessed with control. Michael exhaled. Our lawyer said the judge is reviewing the admissibility of her so-called evidence. It might not even count. Willow stared at the floor. Even if it doesn't, the damage is done. She humiliated me in public. She made me look like a liar. Carly's eyes hardened. Let me handle her. Michael shook his head. No, Mom. We're doing this by the book. If we retaliate, it'll only make things worse. Carly sighed. I just wish Sonny could see what she's doing to everyone he loves. Later that night, Sonny sat alone on the terrace, staring out over the city lights. He thought about his family, about Willow, Michael, Carly, and the grandkids, and the chaos Nina had unleashed. He tried so hard to balance his love for her with his loyalty to his family. But this betrayal might have tipped the scale for good. Nina appeared quietly behind him, her face still streaked with tears. Sonny, she said softly, please don't shut me out. I love you. He didn't turn around. You love me, Nina, but you don't respect what matters to me. That's not true, she whispered. It is, he said simply. If you did, you would have never dragged my family into court with lies and stolen documents. She moved closer, reaching for him. I didn't lie. He looked at her then, eyes full of sorrow. You lied to yourself. That's the worst kind. She froze, her hand falling away. So that's it. He looked back out over the skyline. I don't know where we go from here. But right now, I think we need space. Nina's voice cracked. Space? Sonny, please. He cut her off quietly. You need to think about what you really want. Because if it's control, you'll lose everyone you love. Her heart shattered, the words echoing in her mind long after she left. Days later, when the judge ruled that Nina's evidence was inadmissible, and that she had violated privacy statutes, her visitation petition was denied. She sat alone in her penthouse, staring at a photo of Wiley and Amelia, her tears falling silently. She'd thought telling the truth would set her free, but all it did was expose the part of her she'd tried hardest to hide. At the hospital, Willow received a clean bill of health. She smiled faintly as Michael held her hand. I guess it's finally over, she whispered. He nodded. It's over. She can't hurt us anymore. But in Port Charles, nothing ever truly ends. And as Nina stared out the window, the city lights reflecting in her tear-filled eyes, she whispered to herself, I just wanted to be their grandmother. Yet even she knew, some betrayals can't be undone. The gavel came down with a sound that was both final and utterly devastating. A sharp crack of wood on wood that seemed to suck all the air out of the sterile, overly warm courtroom. For Willow Tate, that sound was not just the judge calling for order. It was the sound of her world, meticulously and painfully reconstructed over the past few years, shattering into a million unrecognizable pieces. She sat perfectly still in the witness stand, her hands clenched so tightly in her lap that her knuckles were white little islands of bone against her pale skin. The gentle, hopeful light that had so recently returned to her eyes after her battle with leukemia, after the hard-won peace with her mother, after the mending of her marriage to Michael Corinthos, was gone. In its place was a void, a flat, dark expanse of pure betrayal so profound it felt like a physical wound. She couldn't look at Michael, who was seated at the defendant's table beside his lawyer. She could feel the heat of his shock and burgeoning rage from across the room, a palpable force that vibrated against her skin. But her gaze, wide and unblinking, was locked on the woman who had just dismantled her life with a few, carefully chosen, poison-tipped words. Nina Reeves. Her mother. The woman who had wept with her, held her through the fear of her illness, who had begged for and seemingly been granted forgiveness. The woman who had just, with the cold precision of a surgeon, plunged a dagger into her back and twisted it. Nina, for her part, looked as though she were the one who had been mortally wounded. Her face was a tragic mask of conflicted emotion, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. She stood a few feet away, having just been dismissed from the stand after delivering her testimony. She wrung her hands, a picture of maternal anguish, but there was a defiance set to her jaw that only Willow, in her intimate knowledge of the woman's complexities, could see. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a reluctant truth dragged out of her by a skilled prosecutor. This was a choice. The case had seemed, if not straightforward, then at least defensible. Michael was fighting for sole custody of his and Willow's son, Wiley, against his grandmother, the formidable and perpetually scheming Carly Corinthos. The grounds were Carly's instability, her history of manipulative behavior, and the toxic environment she could create. It was a brutal family schism, the latest in a long line of Corinthos battles that spilled out of their mansions and into the public record. Willow, despite her complicated history with Carly, had stood by her husband. She truly believed, that Wiley's best chance was with them, in a stable, loving home, away from the cyclone of drama that perpetually swirled around his grandmother. Nina had been their secret weapon, or so they thought, as Carly's bitter enemy, as the woman who had been systematically frozen out of Wiley's life by Carly's design. Nina's testimony was supposed to be the silver bullet. She was to testify to Carly's vindictiveness, her capacity for cruelty, her unsuitability as a primary guardian. She was the one who could provide the judge with a first-hand account of Carly's manipulations, of the lengths she would go to control the narrative and the people around her. Willow had pleaded with her mother to do this, to stand with them for family. And Nina had agreed. She had embraced Willow, her voice thick with emotion, and promised, "Anything for you, my darling. Anything for my family." The air in the courtroom had been thick with tension from the moment the proceedings began. The judge, a weary-looking woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, had listened to arguments from both sides with an expression of profound fatigue. Port Charles's finest families always did provide the most dramatic and draining litigation. When Nina's name was called, she had walked to the stand with a somber dignity, her posture ramrod straight. She took the oath, her voice clear and steady, and settled into the chair, her gaze briefly finding Willow's, offering what looked like a reassuring nod. The first part of her testimony went exactly as planned. Under gentle questioning from Michael's attorney, she outlined her fraught relationship with Carly. She spoke of Carly's decision to keep the secret of Nina being Willow's mother, a deception that had caused immeasurable pain. She described Carly's coldness, her barbs, her active campaign to alienate Nina from her daughter and grandson. She was articulate, measured, and devastatingly effective. Willow felt a flicker of hope. They were going to win. They were going to protect their son. Then it was the turn of Carly's attorney. The cross-examination began predictably enough, with the lawyer attempting to paint Nina as an unreliable, emotionally volatile witness with her own axe to grind. He questioned her motives, suggesting her testimony was nothing more than an act of revenge against Carly. Nina held her ground, her responses crisp and defiant. But then the lawyer shifted his approach. It was a subtle turn, a change in the atmospheric pressure of the room. "Ms. Reeves," he began, his tone deceptively casual, "you speak of stability, of the best interests of the child. You've presented yourself here as an advocate for a stable home environment for Wiley Corinthos. Would you say that your daughter Willow provides that stability?" "Objection leading and calls for a conclusion," Michael's lawyer snapped. "I'll allow it," the judge said, her eyes narrowing slightly. "The witness's opinion of the home environment is relevant." Nina glanced at Willow, and for the first time Willow saw a flicker of something else in her eyes, not reassurance but calculation. "Willow is a wonderful mother," Nina said, her voice softening. "She is loving and kind and strong. She has been through so much and has always put Wiley first." "A wonderful mother," the lawyer repeated, letting the words hang in the air. "And her marriage to Michael Corinthos? Would you characterize that as stable? A solid foundation for a child?" Willow's blood ran cold. Where was this going? Michael's hand, resting on the table, curled into a fist. "They love each other very much," Nina said, but her voice had lost a fraction of its conviction. "Love is one thing, Ms. Reeves. Stability is another. You are aware, are you not, of the significant turmoil their marriage has endured? The separations? The infidelities?" "Objection. Argumentative and irrelevant." "Sustained. Counsel, get to your point," the judge warned. The lawyer nodded, a small tight smile playing on his lips. He picked up a document from his table, though he didn't reference it directly. It was a prop, a threat. "Ms. Reeves, let's talk about your own commitment to the truth. You recently became aware of a significant secret, did you not? A secret that, had it been revealed, would have drastically altered the lives of nearly everyone in this room." Nina froze. Her eyes darted from the lawyer to Carly, who was watching her with a cold, triumphant glare, and then finally back to Willow. The look she gave her daughter was one of pure, unadulterated agony. It was the look of a traitor who knew the cost of her betrayal. I don't know what you're referring to," Nina whispered, but the lie was flimsy, transparent. Don't you? The lawyer pressed, his voice dropping to a confidential, almost sympathetic tone. This isn't about your feud with my client, Ms. Reeves. This is about the welfare of a child. The court needs to know the full character of the people seeking custody. It needs to know if they are surrounded by people who value honesty. So I'll ask you again, and I urge you to consider your answer carefully. Did you or did you not recently discover that Willow Tate was not, in fact, the biological daughter of the late Harmony Tate? A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Willow felt the floor drop out from beneath her. This was her secret, her pain, the foundational trauma of her life, the belief that her mother was a manipulative, drug-addled cult leader who had lied to her for her entire life. And then, the subsequent, even more shocking truth that Nina was her biological mother. It was a closed wound, a private agony that had been healed, or so she thought, through her reconciliation with Nina. It had nothing to do with this case. Nothing. Your Honor, this is outrageous. Michael's lawyer was on his feet, his face purple with rage. Counsel, you will explain the relevance of this line of questioning immediately, the judge commanded, her voice like steel. The relevance, Your Honor, is credibility and moral fitness, the lawyer said, turning to address the room. The petitioner, Willow Corinthos, has built her identity on a lie. Her entire life is a question mark. More importantly, the witness, Nina Reeves, knew a truth that would have provided Willow with a sense of identity and family years ago, and she chose to withhold it. She chose deception. She is now here, asking this court to trust her judgment about who is a fit parent, when she herself engaged in a massive life-altering deception against her own daughter. If she will lie about that, what else will she lie about? And what does it say about the environment at the Corinthos home that it includes a woman capable of such a profound betrayal?